My name is Mike Monagle. I own the Delaware Running Companies. Again, welcome you today. We've always tried to use this store just kind of as a community platform, and in terms of getting the word out on races, helping out charities, and then really helping out you, the runner, the athlete that's trying to improve and do better. Hello, Molly. And so while we've had many talks here with runner safety, we've talked about runner strength and strengthening exercises. Today, hopefully, we're going to be able to, I guess more than anything else, have a conversation, and we'll try to make this as interactive as possible, where you're free to ask questions from the simplest understanding or a question of how this works or how this benefits you, to as complicated as a certain workout as you may have. Tonight, besides myself, who'll be contributing, we have Doug Adams from the Omega Project. Many Doug and Brianne Scott have started their own physical therapy group, but it's much, much more than that with what they're able to do with this running dynamics software and platform, and it's a great use of science to find improvement. And then also tonight we are very happy to have a representative from Garmin. Gary Rosenberg is the Mid-Atlantic sales and technical representative. He knows so much more about what you're able to get from your Garmin. Like I have this conversation often with customers, like, okay, this is a piece of equipment, but for it to be an effective piece of equipment, you've got to be able to use what it has. I don't want you to leave here buying a $150 night paperweight. Like, I mean, this is more than a watch, and that information is here for you to extract. Throughout tonight, there's water, there's beer, there's definitely food. So get up and help yourself. Briefly, before as we start, I'll give you my background with the use of heart rate. For many years, I lived and worked in San Diego, California. And I had the incredible opportunity to train 5 days a week with professional triathletes. They were the top of the top. They were world champions at Kona several times. And they all trained with heart rates. This is in the early 90s. They all had heart rate straps. And I'm a runner, and I never got into the understanding of why wear a heart rate. If I want to run fast. So I was always about what was on my watch, what was on time. And one of the conversations I had with Mark Allen, who's a famous triathlete, he explained it to me the simplest way. And at the time, he explained it like, he said, we use the heart rate not to see our maximum, but to make sure we're not going above where we can't get performance at our next day, our next training event. And so from that aspect, I saw the heart rate as, okay, it's a tool for my training so I wasn't overtraining. And as I used it for those following 3 years, I found it very, very effective. And it wasn't until, I guess, last year and a half ago, where I really reintroduced myself to training with a heart rate and found the benefits in a completely different way, which I'll talk about. So for right now, I'll let I guess Doug start off.
Sure.
And kind of go from there. Thank you very much for being here.
So, and thanks to everyone on Facebook Live too. We got a couple people, and if you really liked it, you can go back and watch it again on Facebook. But how many people use heart rate training right now for their running? Good. So a good bit. How many people are interested in using heart rate or kind of curious to learn more? Good. So this is perfect. And we want you guys to be interactive and ask questions, so don't be afraid to stop us at any point. One of us will be able to answer the question or can help find an answer if we don't have it. But I think that when we talk about some of this, I'm going to start off talking about a term that's a little bit less well-known, heart rate variability, and go over those things. And when we're doing a lot of this stuff, there's not many people that want to train dumber, right? Everyone wants to train smarter. We want to do the right thing. We want to stay healthy, and we want to be at our best. But we're in this era of big data right now, and it's like, well, what do I pay attention to? How, should I be following this? Should I be following that? Is my pace? Is my suffer score on Strava? What is really important, and what should I be focusing on? And that's what we really want to help you figure out, is how can we simplify it? Because it can be a little overwhelming at times to say, well, what heart rate should I be using, and what does this number mean, and how should I judge it? And we want to make sure that those numbers are just kind of demystified a little bit, so you understand where to start, and at least having you help make decisions about it. So really what matters, and we're going to talk about these real factors today with the heart rate variability and the training zones. So if you guys are like me, sometimes that question in your head first thing in the morning, like, should I really run today? And what kind of run should I do? Should I run hard? Should I take it easy? What should I really be doing today? And hopefully you're getting up out of bed. But there's a lot of factors that go into what type of run you should be doing that day. And it's work, stress, family, diet, nutrition, fatigue. All these factors play a big difference. And to try and quantify all of those different areas of your life is really challenging. And you can't just say, all right, well, my work is a 5 and my fitness is a 3, and okay, I'm total 10, so I can go for a run today. It's really hard. You have to start thinking about, well, what are some simple things? And what I really like about heart rate and heart rate variability is that we can't really lie to ourselves. Okay, it's pretty easy to say, oh yeah, I feel good today. Or you start going on that group run and you run a little harder than you should. But the heart rate is often, it doesn't really let you lie to yourself here. It gives you the honest truth about how hard your body is working. So we want that one thing to help you make the decision, but there's a big asterisk with this. With all of these things we're going to talk about, there is no one thing here. It's part of a whole. And we always tell people that you still have to make the decision that's best for you and learn from that. But these numbers are going to help you learn what those decisions are a bit. So anybody know what heart rate variability means? To get group participation here? Any ideas there? All right. So heart rate variability, if we look up here, it measures how different each beat of our heart is. And there's some technical numbers that you can look at if you really want to get geeky about it. But basically, how different is each beat of our heart? And show of hands, who thinks you want high heart rate variability? Who thinks you want low heart rate variability? All right. You want a high amount of heart rate variability. You want your heart rate to be very variable. And I explain it like this, is if you're running uphill, do you want your heart to take about 30 seconds to meet the demand of running uphill? Or do you want it to be able to jump up quickly so that you can run uphill and meet the stress of the hill? Right? So you want a little bit of a higher heart rate, because then when you get to the top of the hill, you want it to be able to go back down quickly too. And you don't want to be keeping your heart rate elevated for the next 2 or 3 minutes as you're going here. So a higher heart rate variability is actually desirable because your body is only doing the work that it needs at that given time, and it's not just in a flat state. So we want that variability high with that. So this is an example of a chart of like some of the things that I've done, just to orient you guys to this a bit here. This is where I started, kind of a baseline, and it was pretty true to this. But then at the bottom, you'll see there's easy workouts in yellow, average workouts in orange, and tough workouts in red. So this is how I use heart rate variability to help me make decisions. Because the way I do a lot of training plans, the way I train myself here is say, well, here's a group of runs. These are some things that you can do. And sometimes we are on a set schedule, but we can also say, I got to get a tempo workout in. I got to get a track workout in. I've got to get a long run in. How do I get all that in? And what should I be doing that day? So I wake up and much to my wife's dismay, I first thing I do is check out my heart rate variability, and I'm standing there with a strap, and she's like, "Go back to bed. What are you doing?" So we check some of this out, but I try and check it in a standard way, in a standard time each day, and say, all right, well, this is what I'm at, and because a lot of times I'll run in the morning, so I can check that out and say, all right, my heart rate variability is high today. That's good. I can do a harder workout. Or my heart rate variability is low. Maybe I should take it easy.
Is that just by putting on your chest strap, or
Yes.
is there a certain way to do it?
Yep,
there's
there's two ways. I check two. I check the Garmin first, actually. I'm a nerd, so I check first. You don't have to do that. The first thing I do is there's a HRV for training app. It's about a $5 or $10 app, and it uses, they actually have a EKG verified machine where you put your finger on the device, and then it measures your heart rate variability for you. And I do that laying down, and then I have my chest strap next to the bed, and I wake up, and then I stand for 3 minutes, and I check it on there, and the numbers are in very good agreement, actually, but I still check too, just it's now my routine. And that's a good point, though. The numbers are very different. Like the Garmin they both give me a score. Garmin might give me a score that ranges from like 0 to 100, where the heart rate HRV for training gives me a score like 0 to 10 or 12. And the actual number doesn't matter as much. It's established a baseline. And you can't necessarily get a lot of heart rate variability benefit by just doing one time. You need to check it for at least a week to be able to say, this is where I'm normally at, as long as you're relatively low stress and not too fatigued. And then once you have the baseline, then that can help you make decisions. So this is when I started some marathon training here. And when I started, it was like, okay, going pretty good. And then you see a dip here, right? So it went down in this position. And when I noticed that I was stringing a bunch of moderate to hard workouts in a row, we see now that I had this low peak here where it went down a bit. And it's matched up with about my training cycle too, that I was ready for a rest week. So we're seeing now that I backed off and changed some of my workouts and did much more low intensity stuff, which we can talk about. Yeah.
So going back to Garmin,
Yeah.
were you seeing high training effects, and was your training load too high?
Yes.
So the watch was telling you this.
Watch was telling me the same thing. So we were talking earlier about the training effect on a lot of the Garmin watches, and I just am a numbers guy, so I have lots of different things. So the training effect was telling me that I was too high, and on the Garmin watches, which is really nice, they can even tell you like you're either gaining fitness, losing fitness, overtraining.
The higher end watches have a training stats that measures your last 7 days of heart rate data to give you a load and how you're responding to that load.
And comparing it kind of what you've been doing. So, and it's really helpful. We want simple things, right? We don't want to have to chart things or graph things or do those kind of things. You just want to say like, oh, this is outside of my norm, or I've been at a 4 on my training effect for the past 4 days. I think I need to back it off. And learning those things is what's really beneficial, and how you can get really a lot of value out of these watches. Because people ask, what's the best way to get fast at running? Anybody have any thoughts on that? Slow down. Yeah, that's a lot of it, actually. Running slow enough. Consistency, right? That's the best way to get better at running. You can get running by like running for a week and then being injured and taking 2 weeks off, and then have another week on and a week and a half off. You have to be consistent with your training. So using this as a measure and all these variables that we're talking about, doing this stuff is a great way to say, hey, maybe I should back it off a little bit. Maybe I'm training a little bit too hard here and I need to back off. There's studies that the typical recreational runner does about 65-35 running, where 65 is low intensity and 35 to 40 even is high intensity. That number should be 80-20. And when you get outside of that, people really often get injured a lot of times. So this is a good way to monitor a lot of those things. So, looking at this stuff, I made an adjustment and see now like my fitness is coming up, and I'm seeing that now I'm seeing an improvement even above where my baseline was. I'm seeing improved heart rate variability. But as I kept going, as I increased some of my mileage and things, I noticed, some slight changes, and I'm looking at these peaks to say, all right, it's time for a rest week. It's time for maybe doing a little bit more low intensity stuff for a while. And that really helped me to stay healthy. Now, for those of you that know, I actually ran into a car and fractured my fibula, so you can't predict everything. Parked car. That's very, very humbling. There's more to the story, but we'll just say, parked car. So you can't prevent every injury here. You still have to watch where you're running. But there are a lot of things that, maybe some of those, if you've had hamstring issues, if you've had shin splints, hip flexor issues, maybe there's a sign before that happened that you might be susceptible to those types of things. And if you're looking at these numbers, that can really help you out. So